on the state of the race in this final sprint. Let's bring in News Nation contributor, Democratic strategist, and host of Kurt's Country, Kurt Bardella, and News Nation political contributor, Denise Gitsham. Guys, welcome to the show. Denise, I am going to start with you. We kind of touched on this yesterday. Trump and Coachella. Why did he choose to campaign in California, in a state that most definitely will go blue in November?
Well, good morning to you both. You know, I'm from California, live in California now, and I can tell you that we're the perfect backdrop for all of the failed policies that the liberals have pushed, so much so that we lost almost two congressional districts in the last cycle. So, you know, there are people fleeing the state, which we mostly stay for because we love it so much. We love the culture, we love the weather, but the fact that failed Democratic policies have caused our borders to be broken and for us to be flooded by just so many different issues. Really, economy and immigration are the two issues, and those both play so well into Trump's bigger talking points to the rest of America.
Yeah, he honed it on Harris and Governor Gavin Newsom yesterday, so that's a great point.
He really did.
Yeah, he really went in. Kurt, with Harris now in North Carolina, we saw her have lunch with black leaders there. She's doing an interview with Charlamagne, the God, this week. He has close to 8 million listeners. Do you like her strategy to shore up votes with the black male voters? Because we are learning that a lot of male voters, not monolithic, are maybe leaning towards Trump.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big proponent of you got to meet people where they are. You got to meet the voters where they are. Unfortunately, most of the voters are not all tuning in to News Nation right now, so that's not an option for Kamala Harris. But I do think that going outside the Beltway legacy media bubble is a necessary thing that any candidate, frankly, running for high office needs to consider and adapt. And I think it can be incredibly effective. You're going to reach an audience that wouldn't normally tune into politics, that wouldn't normally listen to a politician, whichever party, talk to you for 30 minutes, for an hour. I think that is a very effective way to try to get through your message, cut through the noise, cut through the political, cable news chatter that we see every day. We have to remember, most people who are living their lives, they're just living their lives day to day, trying to get their kids to school, get the homework done, get them to practice, get dinner on the table, and then start over and do it again. They are not watching the news the way that people like us generally do. So you have to go where they are. Most moms know this. When you're driving to school, you have earbuds in and a podcast on. This could be very effective.
And I listen to Charlamagne every single morning, and I'm in news, and I love his show. I really do. Denise, when we look at black male voters specifically, what appeal do you think Donald Trump has for them over Vice President Kamala Harris, especially as we look at this poll? Kamala Harris is leading pretty heavily now when it comes to black men under the age of 50. But what can Trump do here?
You know, unfortunately, I have no ability to channel the understanding of a black male mind. So I'll do my best.
Fair.
But yes, I think, the economy, at the end of the day, it is a James Carville, it's the economy stupid kind of issue. Black men have suffered disproportionately, as have most minorities, under this administration's economic policies. And when they see the left embracing a very sort of an economy and policies, both from immigration and economy, that don't seem to be working in their favor, the America First sort of messaging really resonates that Trump's been talking about, is why aren't we taking care of Americans before we look at everyone else that we hope to be able to take care of, but not until we take care of Americans first. And when we look at the limited resources that we have in the government and the fact that we have to make hard decisions as to where do those resources go first and foremost, Charlamagne the God himself talked about how effective Trump's America First ads are. He called them impactful and effective. And I think that what you're seeing is that really resonating with black voters.
Kurt, questions about Harris making more media appearances have faded. You and I, all three of us, have talked about that in the first few weeks of this election. But there are new questions popping up whether her message is tough enough against Trump. I'm going to bring up this New York Times column asking, quote, "Where is the fierce urgency of beating Trump?" There it is, that headline from the New York Times. Kurt, do you agree? And what would you advise her to do as a Democratic strategist?
Well, I think that ultimately elections are about whether or not the American people can see you in that office. They don't really care about what you have to say about your opponent. They know you're not going to say anything good about your opponent. They know you're going to, not be very complimentary of them as an option. But when it comes to someone like Kamala Harris, and let's be clear, this would be a history-making selection by the American people. This is about getting them comfortable with the idea of her sitting behind the Oval Office, her sitting in the Situation Room. And so I think that she's playing it right. Don't waste all your time and energy talking about Donald Trump. We've been talking about Donald Trump nonstop since 2016. The American people know who he is. They know what they're going to get with him, good, bad, or indifferent. There are no new votes there running down Donald Trump's name. That playbook has been exhausted by the Democrats at this point.
So you're saying stick with the strategy that you're seeing from the Democrats currently?
Yeah, because what we've seen ever since she came on the scene here was a boost in enthusiasm, record-raising fundraising, a race that was dead and over, in which Joe Biden would have lost to Donald Trump, has turned into a 50-50 race at best. Most polls show within the error margin, but Harris has had a bit of a lead and has certainly led on the enthusiasm side of things, which is, I think, what matters in a turnout election. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Denise, Trump's in Arizona today, as you know. We also know immigration is a top issue for him. He may be leading in some polls. Like Kurt mentioned, it is very close. But let's not forget, Biden took Arizona by a handful of votes last time. So what can Trump do to guarantee a victory there and not be surprised?
I think he really needs to continue going after the Latino vote, which actually has been effective because when he talks about immigration, Latinos have been surprisingly supportive of his wall policies and just the fact that Arizona is actually a border state. I mean, we talk about how every state is a border state, but in fact, Arizona is, and they bore the brunt of this administration's failed border policies. And so I think that as long as he continues to go after that, also Arizona is one of those by default Republican, sort of Republican leaning, really red leaning states. And so I think that they generally are going to come home. I think generally those states, whether it's Pennsylvania going to Democrats or the Sunbelt states going to Republicans, that's sort of home base. For them to move to the left is really a departure from what we've seen over decades.
Kurt Bardella, Denise Gitsham, always appreciate your insight. Thank you for coming on.